Welcome to Live Vedanta, a podcast about simple living and high thinking. We are in a really interesting period right now on the podcast. You might have caught some of the teasers of Rhythm Divine, the newest release from Chinmaya Mission, Niagara, which takes the essential verses of the Bhagavad Gita and puts them into a rap in English in the same meter. We'll be sharing those releases here on the podcast as we continue to learn about courageous caregiving. So stay tuned. You're getting double the dose of spiritual inspiration right now. But what are we focusing on right now in this broader season of the podcast? We are exploring Vibhishana Gita. And in this text, there's so much there that shows us how we can relate better. In fact, feeling gratitude for all that has come into and out of our lives leads us to feeling more generous with our resources, time, and effort. And that also fosters peace, the feeling of grace, and helps us feel lighter in our living our lives.
Hari Om, and greetings from a village outside of Jaipur, which is in Rajasthan, which is in Bharat. Last week, our kids, Vyasa and Shuka, they got to be with Pujya Swami Tejomayananda, my guide, Sheila's guide, for the very first time. After they got to meet Pujya Guruji, then another time I was with Pujya Swami Tejomayananda separately, and he had shared with me that your kids are so sweet. And I smirked and I said, they're so naughty. And then he responded with, if they were not naughty, then they wouldn't be kids. And he followed this up with, Bhagwan Krishna kam the, which means, was Sri Krishna any less naughty? He was the most naughty. This is shared in such a casual way, but really, any words, any thoughts that come from one who's spiritually elevated, a guide, this is not random. This is upadesha, or advice. This advice brought so much acceptance to me that this is just how kids are. And you all know this. But in moments where there's lots to think about, lots to do, we forget some of this or all of this, and we become serious. This advice helped me with acceptance. And this is very much what parenting culture is flowing through. It is on parenting culture, caregiving culture, courageous parenting, understanding. And maybe another word for this is acceptance. This is connected strongly to the verse we just explored, verse or value 14, which is santosha, or contentment. While we explored this value, I'd shared many sentiments about being choiceless. So much of what happens in our lives, so much of what happens in the lives of those we are caring for, it is choiceless. They're born with certain vasanas. They have to go through certain experiences. What should my attitude be with that which is choiceless? Sharana. Sharana in a rigorous way means to surrender. But in a visceral way, it's felt as accepting. Accepting that, accepting this. The more we practice sharana, the more we practice sthane. Sthane means all is as all is. The more I accept, the more I feel all is as all is. The more I feel all is as all is, I accept. Then parenting becomes not functional, but cheerful. Another sentiment that was shared as we explored santosha or contentment. Contentment is the sword, independence is the shield. The best defense is a strong offense. The more I practice contentment, the more I naturally develop independence. Our team, who has thoughtfully put together a courageous parenting workbook, I'm reminding everyone of the very lovely reflection and application, which I'm going to read to you right now. The reflection: how do I encourage my children to do the best they can and not worry about the results? And the application: at the end of any performance, rather than praise your child's accomplishments, ask him or her, are you proud? For them to understand their effort and contentment. We continue. We're now into the 15th value. Sri Rama is trying to share with Sri Vibhishana strength, and maybe a softer word for this is courage. This is not external, but rather is internal. It's not material, it's immaterial. Sri Rama's chariot, charioteer, and weapons, these are in the form of his virtues. These are to be our values. Number 15 is an axe. In Sanskrit, this value is dana. In English, generosity. Another word for this is charity, but charity sometimes is misfelt, and so I'm using the word generosity. Dana fits into a sequence, which I'm going to share with you in Sanskrit, and then how this fits into the Gita to Vibhishana, or the advice on how we can be courageous. Our 14th value, santosha or contentment, another word for this is dakshina. To be grateful for all of the articles, circumstances, and beings in our lives and also not in our lives. Being grateful is not just being grateful for what I have, but also what I don't have. We've been traveling for 20 days now, and I'm grateful that I don't have any active illnesses. Now, for one who is feeling dakshina or gratitude, then they can't help but express this as dana or generosity. That's the 15th value. And I really want you to reflect on this. Be honest about this. Whenever you are happy about a surprise or a happening, you can't help but tell someone. So similarly, when you find that contentment in yourself, you can't help but spread that. You can't help but let go of materials, valuables. Many of you have watched the old school Ramayana. And when there's the announcement of the birth of Sri Rama, then his parents, Rani Kaushalya and Raja Dasharatha, they're giving pots of gold and pearl necklaces to everyone because they've now felt that which is immaterial, that which is a deeper value to them. And what will come next, from dakshina or gratitude to dana or generosity to daya or grace. When we are generous, our lives, but more so, the lives of others becomes easier. When we are generous, this gets expressed as graciousness towards others. Reflect on what our community is supporting right now, the California Fire Foundation, Daya. If I'm grateful and I'm sincere about this, I will be generous. If I'm sincere about this, I'll spread this. My generosity will make the lives of those in California easier. Those who have gone through or are going through domestic violence, easier. In the Gita to Vibhishana, the 16th value is buddhi, or understanding. Understanding makes everyone's lives easier. Okay? Rewinding and moving forward. The 15th value is dana, or generosity. What precedes this is dakshana, or gratitude. What proceeds this is daya, or grace. Now, zooming into this more about how can we develop this value, the first insight is dana is to feel natural. If I force you to be generous, it will always be in a small way for a small time. But if I can guide and educate you in our community about how privileged we are, that will be felt as gratitude. So naturally then, one will be generous. And extrapolating this to what Pujya Swami Tejomayananda recently shared, he said the Uttama Shishya, the best disciple, is one who doesn't need to be reminded to follow discipline, doesn't need to be reminded to follow service. They are naturally disciplined, naturally helpful, so reminders are not needed. They just do it. Next insight, trying to make this more practical. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a powerful dialogue between Rishi Shuka and Raja Bali. Rishi Shuka, he is the guide to Raja Bali, who is the leader, and he shares that if anybody wants to be happy today, happy now, their wealth should be spread out in 5 ways. The first 3 ways are for svartha. It is for oneself. So the first 3/5 or 60% of your resources should go towards your own individuality. Svartha. The next 1/5 or 20% should go towards svajana, or family. And the last 1/5, the last 20% should go towards sanatana, which means to facilitate dharma. The integrity or integration of community, society, humanity. 60 individuality, 20 family, 20, let's describe it as community. I have found that we have skewed this so heavily towards the middle. We may not take 60% of our resources for swartha. We may give this towards swajana, or family, but we also pull it in from sanatana and give that to family too. When you give too many resources or a misproportioned amount of your resources towards family, it weakens them. It is like sheltering your family instead of strengthening your family. I think I know one seeker, out of all of the seekers I know, who actually follows through with giving 20% of their resources to community and beyond. And it's lovely because I've seen that their family lives in a simpler way. Their children are strong. I like when their children are around our children, so our children can learn from them. Now, giving you a couple of more frameworks. In some of the Abrahamic religions, like Christianity and Islam, I believe the process or the word is tithing. I think tithing is like the word tethering, which means tied to or connected to. And so those who follow Christianity or Islam in certain sects or groups, 10% of their income directly goes to the church or the mosque. See, in Sanatana Dharma, in Hinduism, we don't have this reference because we're already supposed to give 20%. So 20%, if you can do that. 10%, that's what other religions do. If you can do that, I'll give you one more reference, and that is, give 10%. If you can't give it of your resources, give it of your time or age. If you're 45 years old, give 4.5% of your income to make the lives of others easier. That's that grace or daya. Start there, get to 10%, get to 20%. But as I've shared many times, don't pull the philosophy to your practice, lift your practice to your philosophy. Now, a final way to develop this axe to cut away dependence and selfishness and materialism is dana or generosity starts off with resources, but then is to evolve to time and then to effort. Some weeks ago, when I was sharing insights into bhajana, what should be the steering committee of my own life, I had mentioned that of the 6 S's in terms of practicing bhajana, the last 3 are support, give resources, serve, give time, and surrender, which is give effort. This is to be practiced sequentially. First I have to train in this, then finally this. Start with your resources, but then give your time. In more advanced classes I share, it's not even your time. This time belongs to Mahakaleshwar, the master of time. Give effort. Give your free will to God's will. Try all of this as a family. If you don't do it, the propensity, the tendency, the habit of your children to do this is going to be minimal. And so naturally, all around them is lack of role modeling. So what? How are they going to live? In a, I think I use words like dependent way, selfish way, material way. On celebrations like birthdays and anniversaries, graduations and funerals, let these celebrations be infused with dana. On birthdays, go to a soup kitchen. On anniversaries, I was just interacting with a couple that's about to get married, and instead of resources going towards them for their marriage, they want to support charity. On graduations, how about everyone commits to being a better person? And funerals, the person who's passed away, you don't need their inheritance. Give that away. I know I'm too intense, but this is how we become courageous. This is how we go from being Sri Vibhishana to being Sri Rama. I'm reading to what our team has put together in terms of the reflection and application. The reflection: is my family giving back to our local communities? What are ways the entire family can contribute? The application: create a recurring donation to a specific cause or organization you believe in. The amount is inconsequential. After 3 months, assess the impact of that contribution to your family. For those who actually follow through with reflecting on this advice that is a stimulant towards acceptance, which is a stimulant towards ananda, you will find you haven't lost anything. You don't miss anything. We have this fear that if I give, I'll lose and miss. You'll feel the exact opposite. You will feel more courageous. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Be joy. Have a joyous week.
If you enjoyed what you heard or want to learn more, share this episode with a friend or find us online at facebook.com/cmniagara. For those on the journey of self-development, Chinmaya Mission Niagara provides a community forum for seekers to listen, reflect, and contemplate. This podcast is produced by the Young Adults of Chinmaya Mission, an international nonprofit working to transform individuals through the knowledge of Vedanta. Until next time, inspire, love, be.